I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Keanu Reeves. Not only does he have the best name in show business.
Have you ever met another Keanu?
Just say it again. Keanu Reeves. He's also one of those people you just love to see in things. When I hear there's a new Keanu Reeves movie coming, I immediately perk up, because I know I have something to look forward to. You take all of that, and add it to the fact that he is reportedly one of the nicest, most humble celebrities in Hollywood, and it makes you love the dude all the more. He's also made a whole lot of great movies, and here on JoBlo Videos, we're here to count down our picks for the 10 greatest Keanu Reeves movies ever. Thanks for watching the JoBlo Top 10. If you enjoy our shows, please subscribe to our channel right now. Like this video and click on the bell so you can be notified each time a new video goes up. Number 10, Side by Side. Let's kick things off with a controversial pick. Most of you may be asking yourself, what the hell is Side by Side? And if you are, I may have to question your film fandom, as this is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen about filmmaking. The film follows Reeves as he interviews some of the biggest names behind the camera, like James Cameron, Martin Scorsese, David Fincher, David Lynch, Robert Rodriguez, and several Academy Award-winning cinematographers as they discuss the rise of digital cinematography and its overtaking of traditional film and modern movie making. As I have said, if you are a fan of film at all, this is a must-see documentary that gives a full history of the photochemical process of film and the rise of the far more budget-friendly digital. Reeves produced the film and also acts as the host, grilling people like Christopher Nolan on why he loves to still shoot on film, as well as Robert Rodriguez as why he quickly adapted to digital. This is a must-see for any self-proclaimed film lover, for which it is blatantly obvious Reeves is, which is why this cracks my top 10 best Keanu Reeves movies list. Number 9. A Scanner Darkly. This is one of those Philip K. Dick weird-ass stories that got made into a weird-ass movie by Richard Linklater. The look of the film was weird. It was all shot live action and then carefully painted over frame by frame using something called interpolated rotoscope. The story follows Reeves as an undercover cop in a bodysuit as he infiltrates a group of Substance D, a new and highly addictive hallucinogenic drug, users. However, the story is actually a more intricate look at how the government will use and abuse people in order to achieve their ultimate goal. Something Philip K. Dick felt very strongly about when he wrote the original story. And as much as I love Reeves in this movie, with Woody Harrelson, Rory Cochrane, and Winona Ryder giving excellent performances as well, I do have to say this movie fully belongs to Robert Downey Jr. His performance, for my money, was award-worthy. He was that good. Number 8. Street Kings. Street Kings follows Keanu Reeves as a hero cop who marches to the beat of his own drum. He is framed for the murder of another cop who was reportedly diming him out to internal affairs for some of the less than legal tactics he would use when making arrests. The film was directed by David Ayer, and only his second directorial effort, and it showed how he had a penchant telling stories about anti-heroes. You know, the people you wouldn't normally root for. You know what movie would be a great anti-hero movie for him to make? Suicide Squad. Sounds like he would probably make a really good Suicide Squad movie if you ask me. But I digress. This movie shines because Reeves plays a flawed man who is still trying to do the right thing. It is a hard R-rated movie that doesn't shy away from the violence that South LA can be known for. It is a gritty movie with top-notch acting, and that is why it made my list. Number 7. The Replacements. Reeves is without a doubt a true blue action star, but it is nice when he takes a step back from being a badass and makes just a simple, based on a true story, feel-good movie about a group of nobodies and has-beens that step up to the pros amidst the 1987 NFL strike. This movie was another case of Reeves proving that he is more interested in making a good film than his own checkbook, as even though he was coming off one of the biggest movies to ever be made, he still agreed to take a pay cut to ensure there was money in the budget to hire the best supporting cast, including one Mr. Gene Hackman. In the pantheon of football movies, I'll admit, this isn't the best one. Everyone knows Little Giants is the best football movie ever made, but for an off-season, lighthearted sports movie, it's pretty solid. Plus, where else are you going to see Reeves, Rhys Ifans, Orlando Jones, and Jon Favreau dance to I Will Survive in a jail cell? For that scene alone, this movie deserves a spot in my top 10. Number 6. Point Break. This is the first movie where people actually saw Reeves as a true leading man. Sure, he had been a leading man in a film prior to this one, but this was taking the dude from Bill and Ted's and pairing him with the massive heartthrob known as Patrick Swayze in a remake of The Fast and the Furious, made 10 years before The Fast and the Furious. The movie works because director Catherine Bigelow, who would go on to be the first female to win Best Director at the Academy Awards, filled the film with gorgeous shots that at times felt more like a surf documentary than a narrative film, combined with that feeling of, who exactly am I rooting for? Reeves said he loved the character's name, Johnny Utah, which was also the original title of the film, because it reminded him of two of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game, Johnny Unitas and Joe Montana. And as a diehard 49er fan, I couldn't agree more with that assessment. It is hard to ignore the cultural significance of the film as well, even just on Keanu Reeves' career, but the producers of Speed have thought of him for that role if it had not been for his performance here. Also, I was joking earlier when I said this was a remake of The Fast and the Furious, only made 10 years earlier, but the truth is, that $6.5 billion grossing franchise owes its very DNA to Point Break. And I'm sure if Point Break had spawned 8 sequels, Johnny Utah and Bodhi may have likely ended up secret government agents with superhuman-like strength who eventually go into space on a rocket-powered surfboard. That's actually a genius idea. I mean, we may have to make it Bodhi's illegitimate son that he never knew he had or something like that. But Miss Bigelow, if you're listening, give me a call. We can iron out those details. But at the end of the day, it's just one of those movies that if it's on TV, I will stop and watch. And that's why it's on my list. Number 5, The Devil's Advocate. So now we are into the top 5, the creme de la creme of Reeves. And for me, The Devil's Advocate was a movie that showed Reeves could go toe-to-toe with the likes of Al Pacino. While Pacino was chewing up the scenery, Reeves kept this movie grounded. His character was us, the audience, trying to figure out what exactly was going on, not just with his new boss, but with his wife, played by Charlize Theron. This is one of those long movies that you can't just stumble upon and watch. It has to be deliberate. For me, it was just a few months ago. It was a Saturday night. I had nothing going on, so I decided to pull out my unrated cut Blu-ray of this movie, kick back, and kill off this 2.5-hour epic in one fell swoop. I hadn't seen the movie in such a long time at that point that when I watched it, it was genuinely like seeing it for the first time. Those are always the best, when you can rediscover something great. This movie certainly falls into that category. Number 4, Speed. I'd argue this is the film that turned Keanu Reeves from occasional leading man into a full-blown movie star. He paired him up with a legend in Dennis Hopper, the always great Jeff Daniels, and Sandra Bullock, whose biggest credit at that point was Demolition Man, in a film many call Die Hard on a Bus, which made sense as this was the directorial debut of the renowned cinematographer of Die Hard, Jan de Bont. For me, this is just an old-school cop versus bad guy story, and Keanu Reeves is perfect in the movie. Like Dante in Clerks, I'm pretty sure he wasn't even supposed to be there that day. Of course, a movie's longevity can be measured by its impact on society, and to this day, some 25 years later, people still reference, "Don't let it go below 50 miles per hour." It's almost like when someone quotes Borat or Austin Powers, you hear it and you say, oh yeah, Speed, that's a good one. Really, really timely. This movie would go on to be Reeves' highest grossing movie at the time, pulling in close to $300 million, and would truly establish him as a leading man who can carry big summer action films. It also showed how smart he was, as he was offered to return for Speed 2 and turned it down because he didn't like the script. I wish I would have turned down watching it, because that movie sucked. It's almost like the entire cast and crew were on cruise control when they made it. You get it? Because Speed 2's subtitles was cruise control, and they were on cruise control. Number 3, John Wick. So, by this point in his career, Reeves had been in a bit of a slump. He hadn't been in a hit movie since 2008's remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still, and even that could be considered a letdown stateside, as it didn't even crack the $100 million mark at the domestic box office. Reeves was in pretty desperate need of a hit. He was shown a script called Scorn, about a hitman coming out of retirement to seek revenge. The producers originally envisioned the lead to be an older character, someone like Clint Eastwood, who you would believe had this fabled history that demanded respect. But the writer pushed back, saying the character didn't have to be in his 60s to have that reputation. He simply had to be someone that the audience believed was a seasoned professional. The film's title was changed from Scorn because whenever someone would ask Reeves what he was working on, he would say, "My next movie is John Wick," and the producers just decided to change it. That's the type of pull Keanu Reeves has. If he can't remember the name of the movie, you change it. When trailers first came out for the film, it seemed like just another action movie. I mean, it looked good, but it didn't look like it was something that was reinventing the wheel. And then it was released. And how else to say it other than it was just awesome. I am cheating, however, in that this number 3 spot represents all of the John Wick films. I could have easily made John Wick 2 and 3 their own entries because this is a franchise that has only gotten better with each film, which makes the long wait for Part 4 all the more agonizing. Number 2, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. This is one of those movies I saw when I was a kid and has remained one of my favorites ever since. It is a movie essentially about a school history project. It was my introduction to George Carlin. It would be years later before I'd see his brilliant stand-up and say, "Wow, that ain't the Rufus I remember." One of my favorite scenes from the movie has to be when they are all at the mall and Beethoven rocks out on the keys while Genghis Khan just loses his shit in the sports store, resulting in all of them being arrested. Just good quality family-friendly hijinks, really. If it wasn't for Back to the Future, I'd call this the greatest time travel movie ever made. And again, this slot is reserved for both Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey, which was a very unexpected sequel. I wonder how that pitch meeting went. We loved Excellent Adventure. What are you thinking about for the sequel? Well, sir, we'd like to kill them and send them to hell. Sold! But in the end, it all worked out, especially with the end of Bogus Journey and that gnarly Kiss song, "God Gave Rock and Roll to You." However, I must admit, I was slightly let down by the recently released Bill and Ted Face the Music. I enjoyed it for the most part, but I guess almost 30 years of anticipation meant that nothing they could have done would have been good enough. Number 1, The Matrix. Of course number 1 is The Matrix. How could it be anything but The Matrix? It's not often that a movie comes along that changes filmmaking, and that's just what The Matrix did. The film was released not long ago in Dolby theaters, and I went with a few friends, one of whom had never seen the film before. I told her before the movie started, I wish I could see the movie through your eyes, just so I could experience it for the first time again. That is why this movie resonated so highly with everyone who saw it in 1999. It was unlike anything you had ever seen before, and Reeves was the absolute perfect choice to play the lead character, once again representing us, the audience, trying to figure out exactly what is going on. And then came the sequels. They were really nice to look at, but I'll be honest, they confused the hell out of me. Full disclosure, I'm not a religious person, so the allegories of the film were definitely lost on me, and to be even more honest, it wasn't until I saw Darren Aronofsky's Mother that I finally put it together that the Matrix sequels and Mother had essentially the same plot. So, if you're watching this and thinking, this guy's a moron, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. The film for me still ranks as one of the best ever made, and even though the new sequel, Matrix Resurrections, will be released on HBO Max, and I can just watch it in my home, when it comes to a Matrix film, my eyes need to experience it on a giant screen, in a dark theater with Dolby Atmos sound blasting away at my already fragile eardrums. So, there it is, my list of the top 10 Keanu Reeves movies. The guy's just awesome, plain and simple, on screen and off. There's a reason that most people in Hollywood have him on their list of people they desperately want to work with. And I know what most of you are thinking. How the hell could you not put The Lake House in your top 10? It was a tough decision, and ultimately some great ones like The Lake House, and of course Feeling Minnesota, had to be left off. But for me, these 10 films represent exactly why Keanu Reeves is one of the best actors we have working today.